The NFL Combine is only days away. He's Paul Dottino. I am John Schmeelk. Mock draft season, Paul, the pre-Combine mocks, as we continue to look at some of the prospects that could be in consideration for the Giants with the 5th and 7th overall picks. Let's go to Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft on NFL.com, Paul. Two names we haven't talked about, Georgia defensive lineman Trevon Walker and USC wide receiver Drake London. Quickly on both, Walker is kind of one of those inside-outside guys. He's bigger. He's 270 pounds. And Drake London is one of your guys, man. He's a skyscraper, 6'4", and he can go up and get it.
All right, let's talk about London first, the wide receiver out of Southern California. 6'5", well over 200 pounds. Yeah, he's a contested catch guy, got great range. Basically is an outside receiver, although a couple of years ago he did play as the big slot guy. So he's got the ability to move around some. Doesn't have the greatest quicks. Of course, a guy with that kind of stride's not going to in terms of the short kind of maneuverability. But he was a basketball player as well at USC, was a shooting guard, didn't play very much. So he's got those great ball skills. Thing you got to keep in mind is that he had a fractured foot just this past year. And that is something that the medical people at the Combine will be looking at, John.
All right, then you have Trevon Walker, Paul. Like I mentioned, a guy inside-outside versatility, bigger guy, so not sure he's a pure edge in a 3-4 defense.
Yeah, this is another one of those 6'4", 6'5" guys, about 275 pounds. Personally, I like him as a 4-3 defensive end and a guy who could move inside as a 3 technique as a defensive tackle spot. The thing about him, when you watch his tape, he is strictly going forward. He does not necessarily have a lot of lateral movement or pursuit down the line to necessarily play the run or track a ball carrier. This is a guy who's strictly going to go forward and get after the quarterback. That's why a lot of people think, again, on the inside, he can be a slicer to push the front of the pocket.
You're not really an outside speed, bendy type of guy, more of a power player. All right, let's go to over ESPN. Todd McShay with his pre-Combine mock draft, Paul. Kayvon Thibodeau, a name that seems to be sliding on some of these pre-Combine mock drafts, the defensive end out of Oregon. Some people thought he would be the first pick overall just a few weeks ago. And then you have Charles Cross, an offensive tackle we talked about from Ole Miss.
Yeah, we've talked about Cross in that air raid offense, much better pass protector at this point than a run blocker. But I want to go back to Thibodeau for a second, John, because most people seem to agree for the last couple of months he might have the most upside as all the edge rushers in this draft can have. However, is he pro ready? He is going to need to add some strength. He is going to need to hold the point of attack better.
A lot of people think he might weigh in under 250 pounds.
And this is why I think some folks are starting to drop him a little bit because they're a tad concerned about that. So a big question for him is when the physiologists look at him, they got to figure out how much power and how much bulk can he add while still being a guy who can get off the edge.
All right, these other two mock drafts, which is why they're interesting, Paul, both guys have the same exact first 4 picks, which I think is surprising given how different a lot of these drafts are going to end up being. They have Evan Neal from Alabama 1, Hutchinson from Michigan 2, the defensive end, Kyle Hamilton, the safety out of Notre Dame number 3, and then Ekwonu, the offensive tackle out of NC State number 4. And both guys have Drake London in the top 10. Both guys have Sauce Gardner as the top cornerback, and London now obviously is a top wide receiver, the first one of those position groups off the board. But then you have a lot of different names, and I think that's going to be a theme we see here, Paul. This draft, depending on what person, what front office you talk to, they're going to have these players ranked a lot of different ways.
Well, and that's why if you don't have a real strong conviction at both 5 and 7, if you're the Giants, you might consider answering a telephone call.
He's Paul Dottino. I'm John Schmeelk. Your latest look at the mock drafts heading into the NFL Combine.